Hello, my name is Daniel. Thank you for being here with me today. If you enjoy real, heartbreaking cheating stories from Reddit, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot to me. This is a story that's been haunting me ever since I read it. It's about a woman whose world started to unravel not because of just one betrayal, but because of the kind that hides in plain sight, wrapped in denial and misplaced loyalty. My name is Camille. I'm 32, and I've been with my fiancé, Trevor, for almost 5 years. He proposed to me 9 months ago. We've known each other since our teenage years, growing up in Asheville, North Carolina. Back then, we were just friends because I was in a relationship with someone else, my ex, Brent. Brent and I ended things when I found out he had cheated on me, multiple times. It was messy and left scars. After the breakup, I left for college, and it was around then that Trevor and I began dating. He had never been close with Brent. They'd only crossed paths in high school, nothing more than acquaintances. After we got engaged, Trevor decided to throw a celebration party at his place. One of his friends showed up, bringing Brent with him. I was shocked. I hadn't seen Brent in years, and there he was at our engagement party. But what shocked me more was how quickly Trevor and Brent seemed to hit it off. Within weeks, they were texting daily, hanging out on weekends, and even grabbing dinner together, just the two of them. At first, I tried to brush it off. I told myself Trevor was just being friendly. But the more I saw them together, the more unsettled I became. So one night, after Trevor got home from work, I told him how uncomfortable it made me. I reminded him that Brent wasn't just an ex. He was someone who had lied to me, cheated on me, and broken me. I asked how he could spend time with someone who had treated me that way. Trevor told me I was overreacting, that Brent had changed, that people make mistakes. We argued. I was frustrated, confused, and hurt. Eventually, Trevor apologized and promised to take me to dinner at my favorite restaurant the next evening to make it up to me, he said. I was hopeful, even a little excited. I got my hair done, wore a new dress, and waited for him at the restaurant. An hour passed, then another. No text, no call, just silence. My stomach dropped. I called him several times until he finally arrived, reeking of alcohol and cigarettes. His shirt was wrinkled, his face pale. I asked him where he'd been. He tried to dodge the question. I asked again, firmer this time. And the way he looked at me, it said everything. He'd been with Brent. I left the restaurant in tears. Outside, we fought. He admitted he had promised Brent he'd go check out a new bar with him, and he didn't want to disappoint him. I stood there, in disbelief, asking how Brent could matter more than I did. I said if Brent meant that much to him, maybe he should just marry him instead. That's when he said something that made my heart crack wide open. He's the only one who really understands me, not like you. I told him with a shaking voice that if he didn't end his friendship with Brent, I wouldn't marry him. Trevor started crying. He called me manipulative, cruel, accused me of putting him in an impossible position. Then he left. Now his mother and sister are calling me, saying I'm ruining his life, that I'm trying to control him. I'm staying with my sister right now, and I can't stop wondering, did I do the right thing? A few hours after that confrontation, Brent called me. He asked if we could meet, said there was something important he needed to share. He didn't give any details, only that I deserved to know. And that's where I'll leave it for now. When I think about that night, about how I sat alone in that restaurant, hope fading with every tick of the clock, I don't just remember the silence. I remember the weight of realization that the man I thought I'd spend forever with was already slipping away, held tightly in the hands of someone who had once broken me. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. If Trevor truly loved me, why would he choose to spend so much time with someone who had hurt me so deeply? Even if it had all happened back in high school, some wounds don't close. They just stay quiet until someone rips them open again. And Brent was the person who had torn me apart all those years ago. He wasn't just my ex, he was the kind of betrayal that changes you, that teaches you to flinch at kindness because you know what's hiding underneath. A few friends reached out after they heard what happened with Trevor, some siding with me, others not so sure. One message stood out. If the roles were reversed, do you think Trevor would be okay if you became best friends with one of your cheating exes? The answer was obvious. He wouldn't just be upset, he'd be devastated. But somehow, my pain didn't seem to register the same way in his world. Another friend said something that cut deep. He's already choosing Brent over you, Camille. You two aren't even married yet, and he's showing you where you stand. That's not just inconsiderate, it's a preview of the life you'll have if you go through with this. And they were right. Trevor wasn't just oblivious. He was willfully ignoring the damage, clinging to this strange new bond with Brent as if it were some precious lifeline. As if I hadn't spent the last 5 years loving him through every low point. There was a comment I didn't expect, though, one that made me reflect in a different way. It said, "You need to be careful. From the outside, it might look like you're trying to isolate him from a friend, and that can come across as controlling. It wasn't meant to be cruel, it just hit too close to the fear I carried. That somehow, by asking him to draw boundaries, I had become the villain of my own story." But the next day, something unexpected happened. Brent texted me. He asked if I'd meet him for coffee. I was hesitant, but something in the tone of his message, almost apologetic, made me go. We met at a small cafe 2 blocks from my sister's place. I sat down across from him, barely able to look him in the eye. He was the first to speak. He said he was sorry for everything. Sorry for what Trevor had done. Sorry for how it had all unfolded. He said if he had known Trevor had made plans with me that night, he never would have gone out with him. And then with a quiet voice and hands folded on the table, he told me something I wasn't prepared for. "Camille, Trevor is gay." I stared at him, not understanding. I told him Trevor wasn't gay. He was my fiancé. Brent nodded, slowly, painfully. He's not out, not even to himself, but I've known since high school, because he and we were together. Back then, I felt like the floor had fallen out from under me. I knew Brent had cheated on me in high school, but I'd always assumed it was with other girls. Brent told me no. Those pictures I saw back then were real, but there was more. He said their relationship had been a brief fling, one that Trevor buried and refused to acknowledge after it ended. Until recently. He told me Trevor had reached out to him months ago, that they'd reconnected, and that, yes, Trevor had cheated on me at our own engagement party with Brent. I felt sick. I had been in our apartment that night, texting him, thinking he was just running late from work, but meanwhile, he was with Brent again. Brent leaned forward and told me something else. He said he had tried to pull away, but Trevor kept coming back. He said he flirted with Trevor intentionally, hoping to push him to end things with me. Brent told me he wanted me to find someone better, someone who could actually love me in the way I deserved. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My chest ached. My hands trembled. The worst part? I believed him. I believed all of it. because it finally explained why Trevor had become so distant, why he clung to Brent like a lifeline, why he cried when I gave him an ultimatum, not because he was afraid of losing me, but because he was afraid of being seen. And in that moment, in that tiny coffee shop in Asheville, the truth settled in. The man I loved was never really mine to begin with. At first, Brent believed Trevor might come clean. He thought that maybe, if given the right push, Trevor would finally face the truth and let me go. But the more time passed, the clearer it became. Trevor wasn't ready, not to leave me, not to tell the world who he really was. Fear had its claws in him. Brent admitted he had tried everything. At one point, he even threatened Trevor, told him that if he truly loved me, he should set me free, let me live a life that wasn't wrapped in secrets and half-truths. Trevor refused. He didn't want to let me go, and he certainly didn't want to let Brent go either. So Brent did what he thought might break the bond. He pretended to lose interest in him. But that only made things worse. Trevor panicked. He became obsessed with keeping Brent close, terrified of being abandoned by the one person who understood who he really was. He clung to him like a life raft. Brent told me that even though they weren't physical anymore, Trevor kept reaching out, trying to see him, talk to him, anything to hold on to the only part of himself that felt real. Eventually, Brent decided I deserved to know, that I had a right to stop wasting years of my life with someone who never loved me the way I thought he did. As he said it, I realized I was crying. Not the silent kind. This was ugly, sharp sobbing that came from somewhere deep inside me. I hadn't even noticed that Brent was holding me. He whispered, "I'm so sorry, Camille, but you needed the truth. You didn't deserve to live in the dark." I left the coffee shop, went straight home, and packed everything. I didn't just grab essentials. I cleared out my closet, pulled every framed photo off the walls, even took the spare toothbrush from the bathroom. I needed it to feel final. I went to my sister's apartment and collapsed into her arms. Days passed. No call, no text, nothing from Trevor. At first, I told myself he needed time. But the longer the silence stretched, the more I believed Brent. The betrayal felt heavier than anything I had ever known. It wasn't just that he cheated, it was that he built a life with me while hiding from himself. Then my sister asked if I'd write a final update. She said it might help with closure. So, here I am. I didn't plan to turn this into something controversial. I never wanted this story to hurt anyone, especially not the LGBTQ+ community. But the messages, some have been kind, others brutal. People called me dramatic, said I should have known, that none of it seemed real. But these things do happen, and minimizing someone's pain because it doesn't fit your version of reality only makes it worse. This story isn't about shaming anyone for who they are. It's about betrayal. It's about a woman used as a shield, a prop in someone else's battle with the truth. Trevor never reached out, so I forced a conversation. I heard from a mutual friend that he was staying at someone's house across town. I showed up. He tried to avoid me, but I insisted. When he finally let me in, he looked tired, thinner, like someone slowly sinking. He told me he was sorry, that he just needed time to clear his head, that he was planning to come home eventually. I told him not to bother. I said I wasn't coming back, that I didn't want to get married anymore, that I knew everything. He went pale, then angry. He said Brent was lying, that I was cruel for using his past to humiliate him. I told him I wasn't here to expose him, I just couldn't be part of the lie anymore, that I deserved better than being a cover. He broke down crying, begged me not to tell anyone. Not his parents, not his sister. I said I wouldn't, but I still wasn't marrying him. I took off the ring and placed it in his hand. That's when he snapped. He grabbed my wrist and asked how I could do this to him, said I owed him, that I was hurting him on purpose. I asked him to let go. He didn't. My friend who came with me had to step in and pull us apart. Trevor shouted that I was the liar, that I had cheated with Brent, and that I was making up the rest to cover my tracks. My friend told him to get out, and eventually he did. That night, his family started calling, accusing me. His sister called me a snake. His mom told me I'd ruined her son's life. I warned them that if the harassment didn't stop, I'd involve the police. Brent sent flowers. I threw them in the trash. I don't want him in my life either. We were supposed to get married on July 5th. I'm supposed to pick up my dress this weekend. I'll have to cancel it myself because I paid in full. Today, I cut my hair. I cried the whole drive home. I'm crying now writing this. But at least I know the truth, and that has to be enough. Some of the comments I received after sharing my story hit hard, but one in particular stayed with me. It said, "Good for you, Camille, for cutting off a liar. It doesn't matter who someone loves. Cheating and lying are still cheating and lying. Trevor didn't just deceive you about who he was, he used you to hide, to pretend. And in doing so, he let others step in and abuse you, all so he wouldn't have to face himself." I reread that line more times than I'd like to admit. It echoed in my head, the truth of it, the cruelty of it. I think what still hurts the most is how Trevor grabbed my wrist after I gave him the ring and said, "How could you do this to me?" As if I had betrayed him. As if I owed him a future he was never willing to give me honestly. I keep wondering what was going through his mind at that moment. Did he really think I'd still marry him after everything? After all the lies, the cheating, the pretending? Maybe it was just panic. Maybe it was his fear talking. Or maybe he genuinely thought I'd stay, even after knowing he'd never truly loved me. Not the way I had loved him. I can't say for sure. All I know is that I walked away that day carrying something heavier than heartbreak. I carried silence. Silence from Trevor, silence from his family, silence that screamed with judgment and shame. I've been trying to pick myself up ever since. The hardest part wasn't canceling the wedding or packing up the apartment. It wasn't even telling my mother that everything was off. It was realizing that the man I thought would protect me, would choose me, was never really mine to begin with. And just when I thought I'd finally reached the quiet after the storm, something else found its way into my heart. I came across a story online, not mine this time, someone else's. A man talking about a woman he loved, a child they raised together, and a family that tried to tear them apart after tragedy. His pain felt familiar in a way I hadn't expected. His name was Aaron. He was 31, living in a small town outside of Portland. He had grown up with a girl named Beth, best friends from childhood, inseparable. She was the one who helped him talk to girls, who made him laugh when he was falling apart. She was, in his words, his better half, even if they were never together romantically. Beth had a child, a daughter named Jenny, after college. Her boyfriend left as soon as she said she wanted to keep the baby. Her parents disowned her. But Aaron stayed. He moved in with Beth and helped her raise Jenny. And eventually that little girl started calling him Dad. He said he never corrected her. How could he? She was his family. Then, 2 months ago, Beth died in a car accident. He described the grief as unbearable, like trying to breathe underwater. And as if that pain wasn't enough, Beth's estranged parents, who had never so much as held Jenny, showed up at his door. They wanted custody. They said they were her real family. Aaron was lost. He'd never filed anything legal, no papers, no adoption, because in his heart he was just Jenny's dad, always had been. But now he was up late, Googling court laws, calling lawyers, wondering if he'd wake up one day and find her gone. I wept reading it, for Aaron, for Jenny, for Beth, but also for myself, because I understood what it felt like to lose someone who was your everything, to realize the people who should have supported you were the ones holding the knife. Aaron's story reminded me that grief doesn't always come in the form of death. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through a betrayal, a broken promise, a truth you weren't meant to discover. I thought about Trevor again, about the man who couldn't face who he was and used me as his shield. I thought about the flowers Brent sent, the ones I threw away without a second glance. I thought about the wedding dress still waiting in that boutique, wrapped in plastic like a ghost of a future that will never be. Sometimes I wonder what Trevor tells himself now. Does he still believe I ruined his life? Does he think I'll come back? Or has he moved on, burying the truth again, deeper this time? I don't have answers. All I know is I'm here, trying to start over. My hair is shorter, my voice is quieter, but I'm still standing. And for now, maybe that's enough. There were days I didn't know who to turn to. Nights I sat in the dark of my sister's guest room, not because I wanted to be alone, but because I didn't know how to be with anyone. I never thought I'd have to walk through something like this by myself. But there I was, scared, hollowed out, and missing the version of my life that used to feel so certain. In the middle of that fog, I stumbled on a post about a man named Aaron, who lost someone too. He had been raising a little girl named Jenny, not his by blood, but his in every way that counted. Her mother, Beth, had been his best friend since they were kids, not lovers, just soul-deep bonded. When Beth became pregnant in college, the baby's father walked out. So did her parents. But Aaron stayed. He stayed when the crib was empty and the bottles wouldn't warm fast enough. He stayed through scraped knees, kindergarten tears, bedtime stories, and first Disney trips. He stayed because Jenny had become his family. And when Beth died suddenly in a car accident, Aaron was all Jenny had left. And then, out of nowhere, Beth's parents came back, the ones who had thrown her out, the ones who had never held Jenny, never sent a birthday card, never asked about school or friends or bedtime fears. They wanted custody. They called themselves her real family. Aaron didn't know what to do. He hadn't filed anything legal, no adoption papers, no custody agreements. He had just been dad. I felt his panic in my own bones. The ache in his voice sounded too much like mine. That desperate need to protect something pure when everything else had already been taken. Eventually, Aaron updated his post, almost a year later. He said he hadn't planned on it, but after the anniversary of Beth's death and the weight of everything still lingering, he felt he owed people an ending, or at least a continuation. He started by explaining why Beth's parents, let's call them Mary and Larry, had rejected her. Deeply religious, strict, and harsh, they couldn't accept that she'd gotten pregnant outside of marriage. When Jenny's father disappeared, they cut Beth off for good. Aaron had stepped in, never out of obligation, only love. He told us how he'd co-parented Jenny her entire life, paid for everything, held her hand through every milestone. His parents were there too, playing the roles that Mary and Larry never wanted. Jenny called them Grandma and Grandpa. There were no photos with Mary and Larry, no mementos. Beth had thrown away every trace of them. He said maybe she never had much from them to begin with. Aaron was seeing someone when Beth passed, but the grief drowned the relationship. He said he didn't have the emotional room to love anyone else then. They broke things off, quietly and respectfully. He hoped one day they might reconnect, but right now, all his strength belonged to Jenny. He talked to her about the situation, about who Mary and Larry were. Jenny understood, but it broke Aaron's heart when she asked, "Why would they do that to Mommy?" They were in therapy now, trying to heal in a house that felt too quiet without Beth's laugh. He admitted he wasn't okay, but he was trying to be, for Jenny. Aaron followed the advice from the original comments. He went to the school, where he'd been known for years. His mother was a counselor there. He told them what was happening, and they supported him immediately. Only Aaron could pick Jenny up now. Mary and Larry never tried to take her physically, but they made it clear they weren't going to back down. They sent holiday presents. Aaron didn't give them to Jenny. He kept them hidden, unsure if they would help or just hurt. He still hasn't decided what to do with them. Then came the real miracle. Beth had written a will. Aaron didn't know about it. She'd never told him, but in it, she named him as Jenny's legal guardian. She wanted him to raise their daughter if anything happened. His lawyer found it, honored it, and helped him build his case. Aaron took out a loan to cover the legal fees. He said it was brutal, but worth every penny. He collected every photo, every school form, every permission slip, anything that showed he had been there every single day. He said Mary and Larry fought hard, called social services, interviewed neighbors, dug into his past, trying to discredit him. He felt gutted by the attacks, but what broke him most was the fear in Jenny's eyes whenever she asked, "Will I have to leave?" He promised her no. And he meant it. Reading his story, I cried so hard I had to put my phone down, because it reminded me that sometimes love isn't loud or flashy. It's steady, fierce, the kind that never walks away. The kind I'm still trying to believe I deserve. They dug into my life like it was some kind of witch hunt. Trevor's family, especially his mother and sister, contacted anyone they could, neighbors, old friends, even co-workers, to gather proof that I was the villain, that I was unstable, manipulative, dangerous. They tried to paint a picture of a woman out of control, all to excuse Trevor's silence and betrayal. It was relentless. For months, I kept looking over my shoulder, afraid someone might knock on my door and try to drag my reputation through the dirt. But the worst moment came in April, during a meeting with lawyers and a mediator. They had asked me to come in, not to resolve things, but to continue the exhausting back and forth about the property we used to share. I thought it was just another legal hurdle. Then Jenny came up. Apparently, Brent had mentioned my situation to someone connected to Trevor's family, and that was all it took for Trevor's mother to bring Jenny into the conversation, insinuating that I wasn't fit to be around her, that I was unstable from the breakup, and that it could affect the child. They asked invasive questions about how I was coping, about how often I cried, about whether I had ever lost control. I was mortified. And even worse, I was terrified they might try to twist the story into something dangerous. When Jenny left the room with my sister, I broke down. I couldn't stay strong anymore. I cried, right there in front of them all, and begged. Not for myself, for Jenny. I said, "Take me and Trevor out of the equation. Take Brent out of it too. Think about her. She didn't ask for any of this. She's innocent. If you ever loved Trevor or if you feel guilty about how you treated Beth, then do something right. Let this end here." There was silence. Just silence. Then Trevor's father, who had said almost nothing the entire time, looked down at his hands, and he said quietly, "We made a mistake, a long time ago. I see that now." He asked to speak to his lawyer privately. When they returned, everything shifted. They withdrew their complaints, the legal noise stopped, and Trevor's family disappeared from my life. I don't think it was forgiveness that changed things. It was guilt. Guilt finally louder than pride. And here's the part I never thought I'd get to write. It's official now. Jenny is legally mine. The adoption was finalized last month, right after the New Year. I still hear Beth's laugh when Jenny runs across the porch or yells for me from her room. Sometimes I cry in the hallway, just knowing that she trusted me enough to put Jenny in my hands. In her will, she had named me as Jenny's legal guardian. I hadn't known. She never told me. But she did that. She believed in me. Jenny still has tough days. She'll stop talking in the middle of a game, or withdraw when someone mentions her mom. But she's healing. We both are. She smiles more. She sleeps through the night again. And me? I'm still broken in places I can't quite name, but I'm whole enough to hold her through the dark. Every time she laughs, I swear I hear Beth in her voice. Thank you to everyone who left kind comments. I didn't reply before, I wasn't ready, but I read them all. And to the ones who doubted the story, I get it. Real life sounds impossible sometimes, but this happened, all of it. Beth is gone, but Jenny is here, and so am I. We're still standing. Stories like Camille's, though heartbreaking, reflect an important reality many people face: being pulled into someone else's unresolved identity, trauma, or shame. Whether it's romantic betrayal, emotional manipulation, or a battle for stability after loss, these situations reveal just how fragile and how powerful love can be. If you're in a relationship where you're constantly questioning your worth, feeling like you're carrying the emotional weight alone, or being kept in the dark, that's a warning sign. Love shouldn't be used as camouflage, and you should never be expected to sacrifice your peace to protect someone else's secrets. When navigating toxic dynamics or emotionally harmful relationships, surround yourself with people who bring clarity. Seek legal help early if needed, especially in situations involving children, finances, or shared property. And don't wait for validation from the person who hurt you. You already know what's real: your pain, your instincts, your boundaries. Most importantly, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering your strength despite the hurt. And if all you can do today is breathe and stand still, just know that's enough. You're still here, and that matters.